Okay, so creating a table, and specifically here with a single column primary key. We shall look at multiple column primary keys or key later on, but for the beginning, obviously start with simple as we move to something that is a little complex. So the syntax, that is the order of doing things and what you need to make the right statement. So you're saying that we use the create keyword, and the object that we are creating, if you remember last time when I was working with databases, we said create database. So here we are creating a table. So it is the same command, but you have to specify what are you creating at that particular time. And then you follow it with the name of the table. Okay, you follow it with the name of the table. And then you have to open the brackets. So the parentheses, you can see this is the opening and this is the closing. So in between these parentheses, that's why we list we put a list of columns that make up this table. So meaning that if you're dealing with our table course, we could say create table course, and then column 1 could be our code, and then the data type that we expect for code. And mostly the first column we put here is our primary key. Okay, it doesn't matter, we can put it even at the end, but we just want to be organized while doing things. So why would you put your reg number to be the last column in your table, yet it is a must? Because we expect that it's supposed to be provided for each record, so why don't we just put it at the beginning? So that's why most of the times the first column is the column that we specify to be our primary key, and we do that by writing these keywords primary with a space key. That is primary key, meaning that this column here, the code, for example, in our case, is the primary key. And then maybe column 2 could be our course name with this data type, maybe variable character. If there's any constraint, you can add it. And then we go to another column, we add the data type. If it has any constraint, we do that. So we have the details here where data type could be any of these: character, integer, number, or variable character. And the constraints could be primary key, just like we did here for the first column. And then for these others where you have constraint, you can have something like not null, null, or enum, and other constraints that we shall see. So let us see this in practice. I'm going to open up my. So last time, last time we stopped here while looking at the database. And let me mention this before I can write the code. So we had created our database, ERP, and we went ahead and activated it. So you always need to look up here to see whether the database you want to work with is the one that is appearing here, or you can just check whether it is the one that is bolded in the list here. And the other thing is, I would advise not to always keep, it is important you keep all your code. You don't have to delete your statements. You don't have to delete the statements that you have executed, especially those that have executed successfully. But statements that do the deletion, statements that do the dropping, I advise that you either comment them out or you remove them. So I just added this, wanted to see how we can drop. So I no longer need it. So I can either comment it out, and we do the commenting by putting a hash at the beginning, just like we did it with in Python. Or there's you can use the 2 dashes with the space, then you can comment, but I find hash an easier option. But for this case, I prefer to remove it. And the other thing that I want also to mention here, my interest is in the codes that you're writing, or the codes that you wrote, not what you have in here. So you may not have the database, but if you have a code, maybe some of you're not critical enough. You wrote the word database and you wrote create database, and the query failed to execute. Okay, so if you don't have this code and you don't have the database again, so I won't be able to give you marks. Okay, but if I see this and it's okay, she just missed the E, So you have your marks because I see what you're trying to write. So my point here is my interest is in what you have written, not what is existing in your database, as you're going to see things that will be included in the database. And this takes me to the point of how do you save your work? Because executing these statements, they are not saved anywhere. Okay, they are not saved anywhere. So you need to go ahead and perform a physical saving. You have to save your work physically. So how do we do that? You come to file and then you come to save as. Okay, so I assume that you already have your folder on the desktop or wherever you want to save your work. I'm just going to use let me just create one folder here. So I have my folder here, so I'll call it my queries. So this is the folder. Maybe for you it is with your name. Okay, so you open it and then you can give your work a name, maybe just queries, or maybe SQL queries, like that, and you save. So now you have saved your work, and in case even if you close this and whatever, the work is saved. And we shall see how to open it up. Okay, I'll always remind you about this because it is important. So we are looking at the create table statement. So we say that we start with the keyword create. As I mentioned, I'm going to be writing the keywords in capital letters to make them stand out. So create, then table, and then we follow this with the name of the table. So our table, from the example that you are looking at, we want to create a table named as course. So I'll just say table course, and then after that, in between the brackets, I can even go ahead and terminate that because it is required at the end. Then I come back here. So in between the parentheses, that's where we list the columns that we want. So maybe we have we have our column, as we have here, our column code, and then after that we need to specify the data type, which kind of data is going to be held under the code column. So we can choose, you can make it a variable character, we can make it a character. So I'm just going to make it character, and for all string data types, it is a must that you have to specify the number of characters you expect. As I proceed on that, let me also specify on this. So we need a pair of brackets for character data type. So I always emphasize that you type both, because now look here, these are required for this, but now this one is closing the opening one, so sometimes it can be confusing. So to avoid such confusion, every time you open one, you close it and then you proceed, or maybe just come back here and then you type in. So maybe my character can be just 5 characters, and then we need to make it primary key. It has a constraint, we want to make it a primary key, then you can go ahead and make it primary and space key. So all keywords are supposed to be colored in that color, the dark blue color. So all this is a definition of one column. There's no comma whatsoever because it is all a definition, but just spaces. So the code name, the column name, then we put a space, we put the data type, and then we put a space, then we put a constraint. So if there are other constraints for this column, we can just put a space and write the other constraint. But if you're done with this column, then we put a comma, say that we can write now, or we can define another column. Maybe the other column is name. So name, course names can be variable, or can be the length is not fixed. So we can just define them with a variable character data type. Okay, and you can say that, okay, the maximum number of characters any course name could have is maybe 50. So you don't expect any course to take up more than 50 characters, but they could be less than that. So just look at the upper limit. Does it have any constraint? Do we need to have any constraint? Obviously, yes. We don't expect any course record without the course name. So meaning that we need to enforce that for any record that will be inserted into this table, the name of the course should be provided. If it is not provided, we ignore, we don't accept that record, or the record is rejected. So how do we do that? We say not null. You may ask yourself why you have not put not null here. We can go ahead and put it, but even if you don't put it, because it is a primary key, mySQL will automatically do this for us. But let us just do it for now. That not null. So all this is a definition of one column before the comma, and then after the comma, I put the definition for the next column. Okay. Then I want to define another column. So you can have this to go like this, but I prefer a different setup, and this is what I'm going to be doing. So I will define, it is okay to have the same code because this is the same instruction. As long as there's no termination, it is the same record. So we can have the same statement on multiple lines just to improve on the readability and maybe the understandability of the code. So I may decide to put the column definition, all of them, each on its own line with its details. So I can just say, using the tab, I just open my bracket here, and then this is the definition of one column. And then for the next one, I do like that, and I'll put this down like that. So this is my column one, its definition. Then the next column, say that I don't have things that even will exceed the visible area here. So I can go ahead, use the tab. I do the indentation here manually just to improve on the readability. It doesn't have anything to do with the syntax like we had it in Python. You can choose to have yours all there. I mean, like this. It's okay, but I just want to make my things readable, so I tab them. Okay. Then we have faculty as another column. Faculty. And faculty, again, the name of the faculties are having different number of characters, so it is a variable. It is a variable character data type. And what's the maximum number that you can expect for a faculty name? You may find that, okay, a faculty name should not take more than 15, or maybe, okay, let us just take 20. So it doesn't make sense to put 50 when you know that, okay, faculty names can be just science, law, health science, management, social works and art. So you don't expect any longer value for faculty, at least maximum of 20 or 25. So you don't have to put 50 or 100. Okay, so just to maintain your to manage your space within the database. Does it have any constraints? Could we insert records without providing a faculty? Okay, can we insert a record for course and we don't have in which faculty it falls into? It doesn't make sense. So I think it is a must to have the faculty value for any course record, because if you just put a course like maybe BIT, and we don't know whether BIT is in law or medicine, I mean health science or management, it doesn't make sense. So it has to have a faculty where it belongs to. So we can say we don't expect any null value for course, for faculty. We put a comma. If you mess up the comma, it means that you're going to get some issues. And then lastly, duration. Okay, and duration is where we expect a number, we expect an integer value. So we can either use number, but let us just use int. And int, we don't have to specify the brackets because we are not dealing with characters, we are just dealing with the number. And by putting int, we expect whole numbers. Okay, so we don't put the brackets, we only put these characters for string data types. Either it is a character or variable character, and every time you write character or variable character, it is a must to provide how many characters you expect to use. For other data types, you may not. So is duration a must or not? So we can just take a gamble and it's okay. You can have a record when we don't know the duration. So to make that, we just say null. These ones have been not null, meaning that we have to provide values for this for any record that we want to insert into the table. And for this one, yeah, someone may not provide the value for no null and the record is inserted. So this is our table definition. The create table keywords, the name of the table, and then the definition of each column with its details, the data type, and any constraints that might exist for that column. Then the columns are separated by commas. So for the last column, we don't need to put a comma because there's nothing else after it. And then we just have to close our bracket, which we opened up here, and then we have to terminate. And we need to execute to see that everything is fine for this table, and we check whether it is created for this database because it is one that is activated. So we can use the execute button, but I always use the keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut for execute is Control Enter. So every time I say I'm going to execute and you don't see me clicking here, I've just pressed Control Enter on the keyboard like this. So to execute, and down here tells me query returned, no result set. Obviously, I didn't expect any results, but at least it has not reported any errors. Otherwise, I would have seen some weird text here to report that there was an error. But now my table is all created successfully, and I can just check with my database. So the instance of activating the database is when you create something like this. Where is it going to be created? It will not be created anywhere else in these databases, but in the activated database. So in this case, our ERP. So I can just refresh here, and when I refresh, then I get to see my table course. And if I expand, I see all the columns with which I created it. I see the columns with which I created this table. So basically, that's how we create tables, and that's it for this tutorial. It has exceeded the minutes.